Welcome to the Better Sex Podcast. My name is Deborah Catt, and I am your shameless host. This podcast is where we have unfiltered conversations about sex and relationship. So if you have little ears about, you might want to consider either putting on headsets or choosing to listen to this when you've got a little bit more privacy. This show is about the many different ways and possibilities of sex and relationships. And it's here to help you figure out what works for you so you can have better sex and satisfying relationships on your terms. I truly believe that a sexy world creates a happier and a safer world. If you want to do your part in creating a safe and sexy world, please hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Today, I am so excited to have my friend, my colleague, Lisa Rizzoli, as our guest today. She is the founder of Tantra Sacred Loving and embark on a sacred journey. She is the administrator of Tantra Talk on Facebook, which is a hoppin' Facebook community. If you are interested in talking about all things relationship and Tantra, that is the place to be. So Lisa holds a number of certifications as a tantric educator, a spiritual sexual educator, a divine feminine educator. She's a Reiki master, a teacher, a shaman practitioner, as well as having a bachelor's degree in education and a master's in anthropology. Lisa has just been I'm so thrilled that Lisa has been part of my personal journey for, over, I was going to say over 10 years, but I think it's closer to 15. So I am just so excited to have you here, Lisa. It's really, thank you for joining me here on the Better Sex Podcast, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to be with you as well. It's good to see you. God, aren't we just blessed with technology? It's so wonderful that wherever we are in the world, we can always connect and drop right in. And it's beautiful. It's just a beautiful thing.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much. So, I know a bit about your story, but I would love if you'd be willing to, tell us about your journey into Tantra.
Thank you. And I know we've shared a lot about my story, but I really was, it was an interesting journey because I've had this thing that I didn't understand for many, many years. I had a connection. I had all the things. I knew there was spirituality in my life and all those things. But one day, and I think about 40-ish. And I had a friend who said, "Oh my gosh, I want to go to the Esalen, which is this great retreat center in California, right on the coast. It's beautiful. They give amazing massages, an amazing room and all this." And she really wanted to go. And the only way that she knew that we could go was if we did a retreat. And so she picked the Divine Feminine retreat. And I said, okay, whatever. And I didn't read anything. I didn't do anything. I just said yes. Right. Which is often what I do. I feel into my body and I'm like, my body either says yes or no. And I go with that. And which is also a very tantric experience. Right. But I didn't know those words at that time. Anyway, so I went to this retreat and it ended up being a Tantra retreat with Caroline Muir and, Joan Hartfield. And so in that retreat, it was a women's retreat. So I was just shocked by the things that they were talking about and shocked in the sense of why didn't I know about this? I'm 40 years old. I'm an educated woman. I know all these things. I've done anthropology, cultural anthropology. I don't know about this Tantra thing. And so, they were talking about female sexuality and coming into female ejaculation and the Amrita and all of these things. And I was like, I have had this all my life and never had anybody to talk to about it. My mom was really cool. She was really awesome, but she didn't know what she didn't know. And I was this precocious child that did all kinds of weird things. And she was just go along with it. And she tried to help me find the solutions and things like that. Like I remember when I first started bleeding and my menstruation period was coming in, and I would go sit out on the lawn in the backyard and just bleed into the ground. And my mom was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I said, "They told me to do this. This is what you're supposed to do." And she's like, who are they? And this would happen a lot. Like, who are they? And I'm like, them, like the angels. I don't know how to describe them. But she had a lot of friends that were Native Americans, first generations. And she went to the elders, to the women, and she said, "Hey, my daughter's doing this thing." And they said, that's really powerful. That's powerful medicine. We'll make her a bleeding blanket. So that's what they did. They made me a blanket. And my mom said, "If you're going to do this, you need to be outside with a blanket around you and have this." And so that's what I did for a while until I found out that the other kids weren't doing that. And I felt like, oh, I'm so weird. I'm always the weirdo who does these things. And at some point I stopped doing it. And that's when I started having really bad cramps and really bad periods, and all of those things happened. And that lasted for a long time because I wasn't connecting again. I let that connection go. And I let those concerns about what other people thought of me enter in too much. And somewhere in probably my late 20s, I pick it back up. And miraculously, those cramps and those really bad periods kind of go away. And every time that I let that practice go, which, how we are sometimes as humans, we get into a practice, we're really doing it, like doing yoga every day. It feels really good. And then I miss a day, and then I miss another day, and then I miss another day. And then pretty soon I'm not doing it. But that's what happened. And so I let it go again. And then I had other things come up, but it's really interesting because in this retreat, in the Tantra retreat, the Divine Feminine, I really discovered that I wasn't so strange and that other people have these experiences. And so, I don't know, maybe day 2 in the retreat, I was like, this is what I want to do when I grow up. Mind you, I'm 40 something, early 40s. And I went to Caroline and I said, "Hey, I really want to do this. I want to do what you're doing." And she said, "Come on, we're doing a training. We're doing this thing." And so I jumped on board and I started with Divine Feminine Awakened Masculine Institute. And I went through their program, and about 3/4 of the way through, Caroline said, "You really need to meet Charles Muir," who was her former husband. And they're still very much friends, and they do all the things because that's what we learn in Tantra, right? Is that we don't have to create enemies with our exes. We get to remember that love is always here in our hearts. And so I went and I met Charles, and the minute I met him, he told me right off, "We're going to teach together." It was like this really wild thing. I went to his workshop, and he was across the room and I was over here, and our eyes locked, and it was just like that homing device. And we came, and he just looked at me and he said, "We're going to teach together again." And like we did in the ancient temples. And so there's a whole story around a past life with that, but that's another story for another time. But so I looked at him and I thought, I don't know about that. I don't know. But within a relatively short period of time, I did his coursework and became a certified Tantra educator, and then the advanced certified Tantra educator, and then the next level, whatever that one was. And I soon taught with him, and I taught with him for about 10 years. So I was his level 2 teacher trainer. And so in level 2, that was when the students got their certification. Yeah. Level 1 was more about a personal journey and getting you prepped for it. And then level 2 actually was when you got your certified Tantra educator. So I was his level 2 teacher trainer. and worked with him for about 10-ish years. And we're still really good friends, and we have a very good relationship that way. But I've let that go and moved on to some other things now. And it was, as life does, it evolves and changes and shifts, and I'm weaving new things into my world. So yeah, that was the beginning, and that's how it all started in that wonderful world of what is Tantra, and learning just more skill sets around what I already knew intuitively, but now I could actually put words and I had vocabulary to add to it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I love, I just want to point a couple things out. The idea that that you already had this wisdom, and that like the wisdom was running through your system, and it was something that was native to you. And without the words, it was hard to communicate what was happening for you. And so there was that place where essentially that other people came in and were like, oh no, that's not the way we do things. And so it sounds like that shame piece comes in, it shuts you down. Then you get reconnected with yourself, and it sounds like that reconnection made the wisdom, or allowed the wisdom to grow and become stronger. Would you say that's accurate? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was always there. Like you said, the wisdom's there. I think that sometimes when we're out in the world, though, like that self-doubt comes in, and that's just a human nature's kind of thing. And that was one of the things that happened for me, as the self-doubt came in. And then I thought, well, I'm not like the other kids, and I want to be like the other people, and I can't do these things. But I was always that rebel too. So, I mean, which is something that we often talk about with tantrikas, is that we are the rebels. We are the ones that are doing things differently. And, I still, around sexuality, was very open in the sexuality realms and talked about it where other people didn't, And so, because I was curious, I was so curious about, like, what is this like for other people? How do other people experience this? And I always had those kinds of questions. So that just made it a natural progression into what we're doing in Tantra and where we're at. And what I love about Tantra is it really is a spiritual path where sex is just a component of it. But the beauty of it is that we include sex in our spirituality practices rather than excluding it and making it something that, we're all here because somebody had sex. I mean, duh. So why are we so fearful of talking about it? I don't really understand those parts. And especially because also in our current culture, sex sells. I mean, we've known this for a long time. Sex sells. And yet we're like saying, oh, we can't do that sex thing. And it's got, the mixed messages and all the things that go with it. So why not just open the door and have these open discussions about sex and how sex can be spiritual and sacred?
Absolutely. Amen to that. So you were just saying that like sex is part of Tantra, but there's so much more. And I'm curious if you could give, what your definition of Tantra would be.
Yeah. So, I mean, Tantra, a weaving, right? It's a weaving. And so what I look at with the weaving is that it's like all these bits and pieces are ribbons that I've learned throughout my life. Like I think about, school and religion and all the different things. And so I take these little morsels and pieces of what resonates with me, and I make a tapestry. I weave it into this beautiful tapestry, which is what Tantra really is. And it shifts and changes. So it's not stagnant. It's a very fluid type of tapestry, if you will, where I can take this ribbon out because that one doesn't serve me anymore. And I can put this one in because this makes more sense. So as I continue on my journey, I learn new things all the time. I think that one of the things is like, there's no such thing as like graduating from all of this, right? We can graduate, but it's never over. There's always more to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I'm learning more things, I keep adding to this beautiful tapestry that I create that is my life. And I think of Tantra as that, it's the path that I've chosen.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to choose the life that I want to live, which I often say, one of my taglines is like, I choose to live an orgasmic, blissful life beyond my wildest dreams, because that's what I do. So that tapestry, that painting that I'm creating of my life is in constant motion and shifting. And I believe that Tantra is very much that way. There's a whole schools of thought around classic Tantra is different than Neo Tantra and all of these kinds of things. And I think that Tantra is just Tantra. It's a spiritual path. Sure, there's the book learned stuff, and there's the scriptures and the writings and the Vedas, and we can learn so much from all of that. But there's also, we have to look at like, where are we in culture right now? Like,
Mm-hmm.
And in our particular culture in the US, and this thing around sex, and, it's been so pushed down and, hidden in so many ways that I think it really needs to come out. It's ready to blossom and flow. And so when Tantra really started coming into the US, like everybody was jumping, like, what? Sex and sacred spirituality and sex, what? And so it was a definite shift in the paradigms that we were understanding about spirituality. And I think that that's what pulls people in initially is the sexual components of Tantra, which basically is just saying, be present in the moment, be present and be present here and now. And so as we're more present in our sexuality, doesn't it just make sense that it's more powerful and more like yummy and juicy and all of those things? I mean, that's what we teach in basic, like when I'm teaching Tantra in the beginning, I'm teaching you about your sexual energy, your creative life force energy, and how to move that energy through your body so that you're having bigger and better experiences, whether you're in a male body or a female body, whatever it is, we can move this energy through and have these more expressive experiences and more sensations in the body than what we're just doing with the physicality of sex. And don't get me wrong, physicality of sex is really good. Yeah, I'm all about that. But what if there's more? And I think that that's one of the things that happened for me is I knew intuitively that there is something more. And I think that's what I see with so many of my clients is that they know that there's something more to sex, more to living than just this physical thing that we're doing. And so how can we open and expand?
Thank you. Yeah, I want to. So you mentioned a little bit ago. You were talking about sexual energy and creative life force energy, and I think that's one of the pieces that Tantra really opened up my eyes to was this idea that yes, it's sexual energy, and what sexual energy is creation. As you said, we're all here because something, or someone had sex. Some folks had sex at some point and that's how we all got here. And so, really using that, like one of the most powerful experiences I've had, and one of the things that Tantra's really brought into my life is this idea of being able to harness that creativity, being able to use it for, yes, for pleasure, yes, for sex, yes, for all of those things, and to, as you said earlier, have a better life, have a life that is, more expressed. And I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Of course. Thanks for asking. And yeah, that's what I talk about. I talk about your sexual energy being your creative life force energy. And so it's the energy that we create life with, like actual life. That's what we create a baby with, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we don't always have sex to create babies. I mean, I know that I'm not having sex to create babies anymore at my age and where I'm at in my life. I don't want to create any more children, but I want to create the life that I really want to live. And so I know that this is creative life force energy. And with that creativity, how can I open and expand more and have more of what I truly desire and want? And so one of the things that I've always been attracted to is traveling. And I've traveled, I think it's like 55 countries now. I've expanded in all of those ways because I use this energy to enhance my traveling experiences and to pull these things together and weave the picture in so that I can have more of these kinds of experiences. And I think that that's one of the things that's really important with our sexuality and knowing that this energy is really powerful. And when we use it and we learn how to, a lot of people say harness the energy. I don't know if I want to use harness. That feels a little, I don't know. We're going to use the energy in a way that is like mindful and conscious, so when I talk about manifesting, people talk about manifesting a lot. It's kind of buzzy out there right now. Manifest this, manifest that. But it really is like the secret, right? The secret doesn't tell you the secret because I think the secret part is using your sexual energy. You create this thing, like whatever it is that you want and desire. And we do all of the programming with it. It's much more than just going, I want a red car. It's like, how will I feel when I have the red car? What will I be wearing? What does it look like when I'm driving it? Adding all of those sensations in, because again, we're in this human body that we have all these senses. So activate those senses, add that into your manifestation process, and then add that creative life force energy. Get that juice flowing. And then that's when we're in that orgasmic bliss that I bring into mind. This is what I want. I want that red car. And I'm using red car just as an example, but I want that red car and I want to feel like I think about my convertible red car. And I know, Deborah, you saw my convertible at one point. I don't have that car anymore, but when like my hair blowing through the wind as I'm driving over that mountain road and having that experience, and I'm creating this life that I truly want to live. And so that doesn't mean that I just put that out there like that. It also means that I take the steps that it takes to get where I want to go. And that is what manifesting really is about, is creating this pathway to have the access to the results that you truly desire. And so that's part of this whole process around sex magic. We talk about sex magic and using our sexual energy to create the life that we truly desire.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. And I just want to come back and sort of, so the steps, if you were you've got this idea or this thing that you want, and then you start to actually breathe life into it and use your senses to experience, what it would be like to have that thing. And I would even add in there, who do I have to be to have that thing? And as your energy is moving, as you're starting to create, the this dish, and as that energy is rising, you're starting to like, what does it smell like? What does it feel like? What does it, so going through the actual sensory experience. And as you said, taking the steps, like what do I need to do to actually make this happen? Like, what are so I love that description because it has both the, the embodied experience of the feelings of the senses. And it also has the piece around like, well, what do I need to do? What are the steps? Where is the pathway going? And
yeah,
I think sometimes I should say I know that, I've certainly done the rituals and then been a little disappointed because it didn't show up the way I thought it would. However, if I'm open to stepping back and allowing a bigger view, I always end up with something that is, that feeling, that thought, that experience when I'm using that creative energy and when I've got a really solid, like, yes, this is the direction I'm going. For me anyway, it's less about having the outcome, but more about being in the direction that I'm going. So So I haven't actually manifested the red convertible, but I've certainly manifested an amazing life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the other piece of that is really looking at resistance too. Like, this is part of what we don't talk about, or I mean, what a lot of people don't talk about is that when you have a desire, if it's the red convertible car again, I'm going to use that as our example. Why don't I have it? Like, what is my resistance? What has kept me back from doing it? And you can list off all those things. It's money, it's insurance, it's blah, blah, blah. It's I haven't gone to the car dealership to look for it. I mean, all of those things, list off all those resistance points, because that's going to help you also see what steps you need to take to get what you want to get. And so if you are in heavy resistance to what you say you want, that's going to be a deterrent, and we don't always look at that. I think that, not very many people, when they're talking about manifestation, talk about the resistance points. And I think that that's a really critical part. Like, why don't I have this thing? What is it that I'm doing or not doing that keeps me from living the life that I truly want to live? And being really radically honest with yourself about that is going to help you get where you want to go. I mean, that's the basics of manifesting, is like, look at what you really want. How is it going to feel when you have that? And what is holding you back from doing it right now?
Right. And, there's an allowing for the idea that there might actually be wisdom.
Yeah.
Across the board, right? Like, I mean, I love the idea of looking into the resistance and really seeing, what is my reality here? And, I think we often hear resistance as a negative. But, one of the things that I love about Tantra is that it doesn't have, it's less about something being right and wrong and more about being something like, you can't argue with reality. And this is what's going on here. So, is it right? Is it wrong? It's not as important as what is actually happening in the moment.
Yeah. So think about that car. I mean, my resistance point also could be, hey, if I had a red convertible sports car, there's a good probability that I'm going to get tickets. But I have a fear of getting tickets, or fear of an accident, or fear of whatever. And actually looking at those things helps us to develop ways around those things, like releasing that resistance. Well, I don't have to get tickets. I don't have to speed, I mean, and just having those conversations with ourselves really does help to expand in all the ways. And then add that sexual energy, to all of it. And it just makes it more alive, because creative life force energy is more alive.
Right. Absolutely. So knowing a little bit more of your story, I want to come back to, you were talking about using sexual energy, not wanting to use it to have children at this particular point. One of the things that I've really appreciated about your story and love to, I've always heard about orgasmic births, but you were like the first person that I actually knew in the flesh who is like, yes, I've had that experience and this is what it is. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about orgasmic birth and your experience with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So my first child I was 19 when I had her. And she used to hate it when I told the story, but she's gotten over that now. So she's a little more open to it. My mom, shush, be quiet. Don't tell that story. But so I was 19, and I didn't know about Tantra. I didn't know about these things. But when I went into labor, the pains were, they're intense, and don't get me wrong, labor pains are intense. And what they were teaching me, like I had done the birthing classes and the breath work and all that. And what I found for myself was that breath didn't work for me. The breath that they wanted me to do, and I can't even tell you what it was because I don't remember now, but that particular breath wasn't helping me with the contractions. It felt like I was going against the contraction instead of with it. And everything in my body, like that inner knowing, again, that wisdom that shines through, told me, no, do your own breath. And so I started doing my own breath, which was basically now a breath that moves energy through the body and helps me to work with that contraction. So that's what I started doing. And when I did that, it actually transmuted the pain into more pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a contraction was coming and the baby's moving and I'm breathing and I'm using I'm using my pelvic floor, which, again, I teach all these in my Yoni A classes, is how to use those muscles in a more productive way. Most people are squeeze, 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 but we also know that these muscles need to learn how to relax, and we have to teach them to relax as well as push. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was what was critically important in birthing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started doing the practice that I knew intuitively. No one taught me. I just knew to do it like this. And so they were telling me, I mean, this is, my daughter's almost 40. She'll be 40 this year. And so I was in the labor room, and then they move you to the delivery room. And so I was in the labor room. All of this stuff was happening. And I was just doing my own breath. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that moment came when I had the sensation to push.
Mm-hmm.
And the nurses were right there, and they're like, wait. And I'm like, what do you mean, wait? No, you don't understand. I can't wait. And they were rushing me down the hallway. And so I was using the breath again to slightly push. And I knew I couldn't really push because I wasn't there yet. I wasn't in the delivery room. The doctor wasn't there, all the things. And so as soon as they got me in delivery, he was scrubbing and putting his thing on, the gown and all the stuff. And they said, okay, now you can push. And within one push, she was crowning. And there was this sensation as she came through the cervix that was like the most orgasmic energy ever. It was like one of the most powerful orgasms I've ever had. And again, I moved that energy through my body. These channels opened up, and I just kind of remember them going, wait, he's not here yet. And he's running in, not completely scrubbed up, or not, with the gown wasn't completely on him. And here's this baby being presented. And then he's like, hold on, because her shoulder was lodged inside in a way. And he's like, wait. And then he moved her shoulder, and then he said, okay, you can push. And that next push was like, again, another huge wave of orgasmic bliss as she entered into the world. And it was profound. It was absolutely profound, because also the thing that was really special about it was that I was sitting more upward. I mean, I just brought my body up into more of a squatty kind of position, and I could see her face, and her eyes and my eyes met. And, they say that babies can't see, but this baby could see. And we had that moment of eye contact that we often talk about in tantric practices, of coming into that deeper eye contact. And we knew each other instantly. And it was so profound. And he was adjusting her shoulder while this all was happening. So it's a matter of seconds. It was really quick. And then when her body came through, again, another wave of this huge orgasmic bliss that just brought her into the world. And it was profound. It was just a beautiful thing. I remember I'm 19. So my husband at that time looks at me and he goes, oh my God, you're coming. And I said, shh, don't tell the doctor. Because that's weird, but it's not weird. And had I known what I know now, I wouldn't be like that. But it was just such a beautiful experience. And with that orgasmic energy, I think it also added all of those brain chemicals, and the oxytocin that I had with this child was so full. I mean, and oxytocin is something that, it's brain chemical that I actually can taste and I can smell it. And it was powerful in that room. And when they handed her to me, it was like, oh, this baby, the love just was so intense. And I really wouldn't let them take her to clean her up or anything like that. I'm like, no, she needs to stay with me. And she did for a while. So it was a very profound experience and orgasmic blissful experience that brought in my beautiful daughter that is doing amazing things in the world today.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. Thank you for that amazing daughter. And I love that, again, this is something that, you listen to your intuition, you listen to your body. And it's funny to take a moment and just remember all of the ways in which it birth used to be. Like at one point it used to be at home, and then it got moved to the hospital, and you had one room for this and one room for that, and a very structured way of doing it. And I mean, even the fact that you were sitting up is definitely not what the protocol was at the time. So
And they were trying to get me to lay back, and I was like, you're nuts. I'm not laying back. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. And being the rebellious person that I am, I was able to fight that. And I remember the nurse, there was one nurse that was really upset with me because I wasn't doing the right breath. And I was like, I'm doing the right breath for me and for this baby. And so just knowing that and knowing that we get to be that, really feel into the body. Like, what is the body asking you to do in this moment? And that was more important to me than what they were telling me. I'm like, you're not having this experience. I am. And I don't care that you have been at several births. I know what my body needs. And so when we really listen to that wisdom, that inner wisdom, and we know, that we just know.
Yeah, and I mean that is a big part of your work, as I understand it, is helping people, specifically, women, come back to their own intuition, to come back to their own sensuality, and to their ownership of their own pleasure and their own bodies. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the work you're doing these days.
Yeah, well, there's a lot. There's a lot of different things that I'm doing out there in the world, but I do love the Yoni egg practice that I do with women, and just showing them a way to activate the pelvic floor, to enhance their experiences in their yoni, in the vulva, and being able to access those pleasure points in a different way than what they're used to doing. And so that's like one of the cruxes is I really love the Yoni egg practice. And so I share that a lot with women, and we come into that space. So I have that program. I have a program for men that is bigger and bolder orgasms for men, where they are really learning how to separate ejaculation from orgasm so that they're having bigger and better experiences. They're having multiple orgasms as well as that full body orgasm. And then using that energy, again, learning to move the energy through the body so that they're using it to create the life that they truly want to live, and how that becomes spiritual. How we connect with spirit and we go out into the ethers and into the collective consciousness to have these more profound experiences that go beyond, that take sex beyond physicality and into the energetics and the spiritual realms of what is possible. So that's another course that I do. And now I'm doing this other course called Wild, which is wild. And it's primarily for women, but couples as well. But mostly I'm working with the women and teaching them how to share this with their spouses or their partners and have that experience as well. It starts within. So they're getting all of the different kinds of practices that we do in Tantra, and having different different ways to be connected to your partner, different ways to be connected with yourself, and different ways to really enhance your own spiritual journey and coming into this place of like, what is transformation? Because I really do have a strong, and I know, I know how this goes in Tantra land, but I really do believe that a lot of practices that are out there, especially around trauma, are not actually helping with releasing trauma and transforming it. They actually anchor it. The more we talk about that trauma, the body doesn't really know the difference between it happening now and whether it happened 6 months ago or whatever. So are we anchoring that trauma, or are we actually getting tools to transform and transmute that trauma, and know that every step that you've taken on this journey has brought you to here?
Mm-hmm.
So where I am right now is a really beautiful place, and I get to be grateful for all the steps that have happened along the way, including the ones that we may say are not so nice, but it comes back to that duality. And in Tantra, we're really looking at non-duality. It's not good or bad. It serves in one ways and limits in another. But can we look at the serve? I mean, can I be grateful for, the divorces? Can I be grateful for I have had, rape has been in my journey, on my journey. And can I be grateful for that? It's not really grateful for the fact that the rape happened, but as a result of that and where I am, I've learned how to work with women who have had this similar experiences. And I've learned how to transmute that energy and I'm a victim for a moment. I'm a victim when I'm in it. Right. And I don't even like survivor because it implies victimhood. And so these are some of the things that I really work with around the trauma. I'm not a big trauma processor. I'm a trauma transmuter. Like, okay, trauma happens. It really does. But like, let's look at other people, and like, this person was raped and this person was raped. This person goes on with their life and this person holds on to that rape. And then they let that define them. And I'm not a person that does that. So for me, I'm really helping people get through their stuff, but I don't do a lot of trauma processing like I see in so many different modalities.
So just to be clear, it sounds like what you're saying is, instead of doing the talk and the continuing to talk about it, which, as you mentioned, can also start to really anchor that in, what you're using is other tools, maybe movement, maybe breath, maybe sound, which are, the sort of big three in Tantra, but moving that experience, transmuting or transforming that and then releasing it, the trigger piece. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that is fairly accurate. And, it's like knowing that, yes, this thing happened to me, right? It doesn't define me. And what did I learn from it? Because there's gifts. I truly believe there's gifts in everything. And if we look at it from the soul level, knowing that I entered this body to have a certain experience, and that may have been one of the things that I chose to have that experience for whatever reason. And maybe I made a soul contract with the perpetrator and we came together to do this thing so that we could have an experience and then transmute it and bring it into the collective consciousness of like, if this happened to you, again, I'm not saying that it's not a trauma. I understand that it is. I understand all of that. I have a lot of compassion and empathy for that. But I also believe that a lot of times people are anchored and continue to anchor it into their bodies. And that is, and maybe that is the journey that they're choosing to be on. And that, again, who am I to judge that? If that's the journey that they're on, that's the journey that they're on. But I work with people who want to do something different and come out of that space.
Got it. So that's, and so moving moving into the next phase is the place where you're really working versus. So I'm imagining that there is a place where for you and for your clients, there is a bigger space in terms of the creative place, in terms of the manifestation place, in terms of looking for, how does this enhance my relationships?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, when we can look at it like that, like I think about, one of the questions that I ask when I was dating is now I'm in a real relationship. They're all real relationships. They're all real relationships. This one is just different. But when I was dating, that was a question that I always asked is like, how do you feel about your ex? Where are you with that? Because people who are holding a lot of anger and hostility towards their exes probably aren't going to fit well with me.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not. We're probably going to have some issues around that because I truly do believe like once you get, I mean, sure, there's hurt and anger and pain and all of those. Feel the feelings. It's so important to feel your feelings. That's why they're there. Feel the feelings. And then what? What do you do afterwards? And remember that, like when I think about my exes and my one ex he's a really bad guy. I mean, he did some really, really terrible things, but I loved him. And so that love exists within my heart. And that love is always going to be there because I do truly believe that love never dies. There's a song by The Fray, Love Don't Die. And I love that song because it's really my philosophy in this is that, I came into this place to have more love and I can love that person. It doesn't mean I want to be with them. It means that I recognize that there was a time that we had this deep, intense love and all the beautiful things that came out of that. And maybe maybe some not so beautiful things. And that's okay too. But let's move into this other realm because when I hold hatred or anger, resentment, all of those things, the only person it really hurts is me. you know, that's the only person it really hurts. And so I don't want to be in that place. I mean, I had those experiences. They brought me to here and now let's move forward.
Yeah. And I think, again, it's a real cultural construct that we shouldn't have contact. We shouldn't we shouldn't love that, once, if a relationship doesn't work out for always and ever, then, it was a bad relationship and the people in it were, bad people or broken. And that is so not my definitely not the way I think about it. And it doesn't sound like it's the way you think about it either. We have this practice. One of the tantric practices through that we've been playing with is that can we actually bless our exes? Can we actually bless everything that's come before and that's brought me to this place? Because as you said, there were lessons that I learned from this person. Maybe and one of the things I've really been noticing lately, and I'd be curious to hear what you think about this, is it's like, we have this idea that learning and that all these things are a linear process, right? But it's not. It's like we open and, with every expansion, there's contraction, whether it's a big contraction or a little contraction. But it's like, we're in flux, or at least I believe, or I see us as all being in flux. It's like a little bit of expansion, little contraction, and do we contract all the way back? Times. I mean, sometimes we hit that thing that just sends us right back into our childhood patterns and, back under the covers. And as you said, feel the feelings, stay under the covers as long as you need to.
Right.
I also feel like we have a lot there's a lot of shame around being in the down. And there's a lot of wisdom in the down. There's a lot of wisdom in being able to slow down, take some time to be under the covers, take some time to feel, take some time to oh wow, it's in my heart space, or it's in my belly, which tells me it's about power, or it's in my throat, which means it's about, communication, or whatever, but actually being able to harvest these, the wisdom that is available through the body, is one of the things that I really got out of Tantra.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful practice of being more aware and bringing your conscious awareness to what is really going on. And my daughter has developed this method that is called the 7-layer transformation, which her and I, she's actually brought it to my awareness. And so I've been doing this with her for like 4 years now, and we're teaching it on this level with the tantric approach as well, of breathing in and really accessing those feelings. Like, feel those feelings. Like, what is anger? Where does anger reside in your body? What color is it? And we can go deeper and deeper with it. And then, what is the message that it's telling you? Because every emotion has a message for you. So when we can access that and step into that message, then we can actually bring it to neutral. And from neutral, that's where we transform it. I think about shifting a car, right? If you're going first, you got to go to neutral to get to second. This is a manual car, obviously. Or it's not an automatic, but a manual car, you're in first, you have to shift to second, but you go through neutral and for that transformation to happen. And that's exactly what this process is about. So this is another piece of wild that I teach, is Nicole's 7-layer transformation. And that is also in the wild program. So people are having amazing results from doing these practices and having just more experience in their body, more awareness of those experiences in their body.
Beautiful. I'm so excited for this program. But so first I'm going to ask you, I should say in a minute, I'm going to ask you what, if there's a technique or something that, people listening to this, when they get off the call can jump right in and start using. But I just want to take a moment and tell people how they can support the Better Sex podcast. So, if you've been listening to me at all, if you've been listening to the podcast for any number of times, and this conversation is a perfect example, sex is a complex subject and it can make or break a relationship. And unfortunately, most of us don't grow up in an environment where talking about sex is welcome. And that's why I have created the Relationship Lab. It's a place where we come together, we learn, and we practice. We have experiments, just like scientists, just like a lab. So if this is something that you're interested in, if you're ready for tools, tips, exercises, so that you can learn more and have better sex and a satisfying relationship, please check it out. There is a link in the show notes, because life is too short for bad sex.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you. So what would be one suggestion you would make for people, or a tip that they can jump right in?
Well, one of the things that when I'm working with people in the very beginning is I really believe that a daily meditation practice is paramount to your spiritual journey. And so what I've created is the Loving Myself Awake meditation, which I love it.
I do too.
I have developed this over the years. And again, this is a perfect example of Tantra and weaving, because I first got it introduced to something of this nature when I was like in 7th grade French class. Our teacher sent the boys off to the library and kept the girls there. And we did this type of meditation. It wasn't exactly what this is, because I've also added pieces of what I learned from Charles in Tantra land, and other pieces and bits and pieces that I've learned around meditation. But it was a meditation practice that brought more awareness to your body in the 7th grade. And so that's a long time ago, a long time ago. But it's just always been a part of my journey because it was so profound. Again, a very profound practice. So now I've incorporated some other pieces, some Taoist stuff, some Tantra stuff, some spiritual stuff, some energy movement. And so I highly recommend doing this practice on a daily basis and listening. There's a complimentary audio version of it on www.letstalktantra.com. And you can find it there. That audio I recommend doing for at least 30 days to build your foundation. Once you have your foundation, then start adding your own flavors to it. Get those ribbons, weave in what works for you so that you're creating your own version of it. That's vitally important as well. And I really do believe that that's how things evolve. It's like, it doesn't always have to look just like this. It gets to look like this. And everyone has their own individual practice and their own individuality that steps in and what makes them love themselves awake even more. And that is one of my most favorite practices that I do. And I'm really good about doing it every day, most of the time. Because like anything, sometimes it slips away from even me, who's been doing it for many, many years. And that's okay. When I recognize, oh, I didn't do my practice today. I can just stop and do it, I can do it now if I want to. And it is just a really bringing more awareness into the body.
Yeah. So that'll be in the show notes. And just to give you a little teaser, it is, let me make sure I got this right. So it's pretty much going through the whole body, part by part, and essentially saying good morning and I love you.
Basically, that is what it is. It's an awakening of those nerve endings and bringing more sensation and awareness into your body. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes with the audio. Yeah. And it's super sweet.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. I am so excited to have you here, to have you share wisdom, to have you share your meditation, which I personally love with my audience. And so do you want to just tell us, everything will be in the show notes, but if you want to just give us the best way to reach you is...
Right now, I think the best way to reach me is Facebook, because that seems to be the platform that's really talking loud right now. And my Facebook group is called Tantra Talk. Come join it. I welcome you into the group, and just join me over there. And if you have questions, just shoot me a DM, and we can always have a conversation about any of this.
Beautiful. And I just want to say, Tantra Talk, it's a great group. There are questions, there are Facebook Lives, there are full moon ceremonies, there are, it's just a really lively, fun place to be, and to get to talk about spirituality, to talk about sexuality, to talk about all things relationship. And you do an amazing job of moderating and really morning or prompts from time to time. It's a really fun and active group, so I highly, highly recommend. It's on Facebook, and it is called Tantra Talk.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for being a part of it and adding your flavor in too, because that's what makes it so great, is that when people are really active in there and getting involved in the conversations, posting their questions or comments or ideas in the moment, it's a powerful way for us to really connect. So yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Again, my guest, Lisa Rizzoli. She is an amazing and just really beautiful spirit. And I'm so, so happy to have you here on the Better Sex podcast. And for those of you who are listening, if you know somebody who would benefit from this conversation, any of the many things that we talked about, orgasmic birth, following your intuition, knowing what is right for you, any of these things, please pass it on. Also, if you would be so kind as to comment, like, subscribe, leave a comment, it really helps us get out so that more people can get really good information about sex and meet some awesome people. So again, thank you so much and have a great rest of your day. See you on the next call.